When I need answers about anything to do with personal growth, I go straight to my mom and my aunt. Here they are, Priscilla Babin and Tina Gilliatt with the sister sauce.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tina Gilliatt, and I'm here with my lovely sister, Priscilla Babin. Say hi, Priscilla.
Hello.
You're supposed to say
Hi.
hi, Priscilla.
Hi, Priscilla.
We are the Sensei Sisters, and this is the Sister Sauce episode 15.
15.
15. Every week we
Wow.
are awed by our own progress.
Can't believe it's been 15 already. That's crazy.
That's what you said about 14, and that's what you said about 13, and that's what you said about 12.
I
Yeah, but
don't
it
say
is
it every
kind of
week.
cool. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. Are we getting any better? I sure hope so.
Yeah. Are we getting paid? No.
No. But is it for money? No,
No.
it is not. It's because we just love all you people so much and we want to put the good word out there.
Yep.
And so today we have lots of great stuff to talk about. But first, Priscilla, do you have any hot sauce you'd like to share?
I do have some hot sauce. My hot sauce is about appreciating what you have because the earlier part of this week we had I got a notice on my phone saying that we needed to conserve water. And I thought, oh, well, too late for that because my dishwasher was already mid-cycle and I had already run a load of towels like an hour before in the washing machine. And I was like, well, I got that memo too late. And then I went to wash my hands or something and I turned the water on and it was barely a trickle. And I was like, that's weird. Why is my water pressure so low? And then a few minutes later, I got another text message. This was like hours later. Another text message saying that we had to boil our water. And if you ever had to do this procedure before, you know it's a little bit, especially if you're a little germophobic, you're like, oh, boil it. Is that enough? Did we boil the water? And I had already, before I realized the water pressure was low, I had put water in a pot to make ramen for Clover. And the noodles were already in there. And I was like, well, it's boiling, so I guess it still counts. So they didn't die, so it's good. It's
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
But I boiled the heck out of those poor noodles.
You boiled the germs out of
I
everything.
did. And my wonderful sister Tina was gracious enough to let us use the shower at her house. Um
The three showers.
Yesterday, Wednesday, all three showers at one time.
That was
Because
funny.
they said you can take a shower even if you're supposed to be boiling it before you drink it. But like, I can't not get water in my mouth when I'm in the shower, and I don't trust my two kids to keep it out their mouth either. And what about your eyeballs and your nose holes and everything?
And,
It's
but
gonna
y'all
go in
didn't really
there.
have enough pressure to do anything, did you?
Well, that's true too. Well, I mean, the pressure did come back up on Wednesday when we went to your house, but not until later in the day.
Yeah, true.
And I was not in any fit state to go out in public with my hair looking the way it did. So I had to get clean. But so I really appreciated that clean water at Tina's house. And the reason it's a hot sauce today though is because I went online to our local the social media for our local area and they were announcing, the status of everything and people were just so ridiculous. I mean, it was a huge water main break and it was the like a main pipe that goes out into the community and that's why the pressure was so low because they were repairing this 80-year-old pipe. And everybody's like, why are you repairing it and not replacing it? Why are you doing, but hurry up, like
Oh yeah.
no patience whatsoever. And a few people popped in the comments to say, hey, there are places who do not have clean water to drink ever.
Ever.
And you're
Right.
complaining about a couple of days where you have to drink bottled water or boil your water, and you have the ability to do that stuff. Some people can't boil their water or treat their water with bleach or buy bottled water. It's not any kind of, they're drinking dirty water and getting sick because that's their only option, you
Yeah.
know. So appreciate the this first world that you're living in, you know?
It's the truth. It's the same kind of thing when the power goes out. People get
Mhm.
nasty.
They do. And it's like, you don't have to go out and fix it yourself. Why
Yeah.
complaining?
Although the power will go out and we're in the middle of a hurricane and Entergy trucks are out there trying to fix the power and people
In
are
the
getting
weather.
mad that they're not moving quick enough. And I'm thinking to myself, are you at work today? Because those poor guys are at work today. They have to go out in this weather and
Or
deal
the
with
middle
it.
of the night or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, appreciate.
Yeah,
Stop
I
taking
agree with
things for
you.
granted.
I like your hot sauce. It's
Yeah, it's
right up
too
there
easy to
with the
take stuff
best
for
hot
granted.
sauce ever. It's tasty. Well, today we're talking about goal setting as our
Ooh,
meat sauce, our main topic. And we've talked about the New Year's resolutions off and on, but you remember when we went over the New Year's resolution stuff, you and I really felt very strongly that New Year's resolutions are not the same things as goals and
right.
don't have to be as specific. Although there was some articles out there that we found that said that they were synonymous and that New Year's resolutions should be goals. I don't necessarily agree with that, but but today we are going to be specifically talking about goal setting, and got most of our research from one place that we found a very good article. And in fact, I recommend that you look in our show notes and go click the link to that article because it we're only going to touch on a little bit of the information that we found, but it was good stuff. So basically, the first question is, what is goal setting and how do you do it well? And they define goal setting as a powerful motivator, the value of which has been recognized in an abundance of clinical and real world settings for over 35 years.
Wow, we're older than
I
goal.
know. Yeah, we're older than goal setting.
I'm sure goal
Yeah.
setting's been
Why did
around
you
for
have
a
to
lot more
bring
than
that up?
35 years.
We're just
It
more
just,
grown up than goal setting. We're not
that's
old.
right. That's right. We are more mature than goal setting. That sounds good.
Much better.
But goals are the level of confidence that we want to achieve.
So
So
it's like a
height,
target, I guess.
the height of our accomplishment.
It's the
Yeah.
dot on the map that we want to navigate to.
Yeah.
It's also the process that we go through to achieve our goals. So, goal setting is part of the process. You have to set the goals before you can work toward achieving them.
It's a journey.
Yeah,
And we have to decide what is beneficial to our own welfare when we and set the goals according to that. We have our goals have to be customized.
personal.
Otherwise,
Yes, for
yeah, if
sure.
they're not, you're setting somebody else's goal.
Yeah. And you also have to be willing to adjust the goals if that's what it takes to improve your performance. So you set the goals and you adjust them as needed to impact your performance. It's kind of like the John Maxwell thing that I did, where you're planning and they say if you are planning a trip and you get to a certain point in the trip and the road is closed, you have to figure out what's an alternate route you can take. And I
Mhm.
guess that's what I equated it to, adjusting your goals to get to the destination. So
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and goal setting is important because goals affect the intensity of our actions and our emotions. So essentially, we're likely to achieve more if we've set goals for ourselves. If you see that, to me, that says it's just like that old saying of if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Except, I mean,
Oh, I love that.
that's about your beliefs and your philosophy in life and stuff. But it's kind of the same concept of if you don't know where you're going, you're just wandering lost, right? You need a path. You need to have that path set.
That direction. Yeah. Oh, I love that though. If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's a good
It's in
quote.
Hamilton, so we get a constant reminder every time.
Oh, I was wondering. That wasn't one I had heard before, but I
I had
like
heard
it.
it before Hamilton, just Lin-Manuel got that from somewhere. He didn't come up with
We'll
it
have to
himself.
look it up and see who deserves credit for that. So there are some key principles to goal setting, and the first one is commitment. So that's like your attachment to the goal. You have to be committed to the goal, so you'll be more determined to reach it. So if you're not even committed, I mean, how do you expect to succeed? And if you are committed, you tend to put a lot more effort toward it, right? Because you want
Mhm.
to make sure you win the struggle, or you can overcome any obstacles in route.
Yeah, because then it means something.
Exactly.
Your
Yeah.
attachment, emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
then,
know so many people who have tried to quit smoking, but their
oh,
heart, and we talked about that with New Year's resolutions too. Your heart has to be in it. But then
mhm.
again, my quote, act yourself into a feeling. Because
Yeah,
but you do have to eventually commit, because even that quote about act yourself into a feeling, you're more likely to act yourself into a feeling, meaning the feeling does come. So you might not be as committed when you start working toward the goal, but eventually you have to commit, right? Or you
yeah.
might as well just give up.
I feel like it's not even really a goal if you're not committed to it.
True.
I feel like that's part of it being a goal. Because if it's just like, well, I think I might go to the store, that's not really a goal. A goal would be putting it on a to-do list and say, today I'm going to the store, you know, kind of laying that groundwork, ahead of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the next principle is clarity, which is the spec I knew I was gonna have trouble with this word. Specificity. I did it, of the goal. If the goal is specific, where it's easier for us to plan our approach because we know exactly what we're doing, what we're shooting for in the way of results. So if you just that's and I think that we're going to be talking a little bit more about that, about making it more specific, in that you can't have too big broad of a picture.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, because the SMART goals, which we opted not to go with the whole SMART goal thing because it's so overused and
Hmm.
most people are aware of it. And but this is similar to that, but it talks about it in a different way, which was one of the reasons I like this resource so much. But S is for specific and SMART goals. And so I said, yeah, they had to get that specific in there.
Hmm.
You have to have specificity. And this one I found interesting. The third principle is challenge. So it's the degree of the goal's difficulty. And it's a delicate balance because goals have to challenge us, but they can't challenge us so much that they're not attainable. They have to be attainable. If the goal is too difficult to reach, you're going to give up, right? And
Hmm.
it goes back to what we were talking about with the New Year's resolutions, where we said, if you say, I'm going to lose 150 pounds this year, that's ridiculous. That is not an attainable goal. Plus, you would only be 5 pounds, so that would be kind of bad. But um, but if it's too easy and there's no challenge there, then what's the point, right? So it needs to be challenging but attainable, I guess is the best way to
Hmm.
summarize that.
Yeah. And the next one is complexity, or the degree of the goal's demands. So your tasks can't be overly complex and the time scale needs to be realistic, which is
Mm,
kind of in this is kind of similar to challenging, but
right.
you don't want it to be, tedious or um too many parts. of the whole thing, all at once, all in
Yeah.
one go, because you'll get overwhelmed and you could get disillusioned or bored or just, poop out on it.
Oh, yeah.
I got a better phrase. I was thinking about this one earlier, and I was thinking how you don't realize how much in goals, like goals, trying to achieve goals, and also even just in everyday life, the whole fight, flight, or freeze response happens
Hmm.
because it's even as simple as my kids doing homework. Sometimes if they're just having too hard a time wrapping their head around something, and sometimes it's because they're tired or didn't get enough, nourishment or hydration that day. There's different reasons for it. It's not always because the homework is too hard or too big of a project. I mean, my kids tend to procrastinate sometimes on certain things based on if it is complex or challenging, but especially if it is really complex or outside of their comfort zone, and they will freeze up, and it
Yeah.
looks like procrastinating, but it's them freezing up or
Not knowing where to start, kind of like.
right. And I don't know if y'all don't know, Diana is biting my hand on camera. uh, she's trying to tell me that my goals for her are too complex. uh, I just want you off camera with your tail. Anyways, I was thinking about, though, even, you know the flight is them, saying, oh, I need something to eat first. Oh, I need to go use the bathroom. And sometimes that is a good thing because they need that break, they need that nourishment, or, if you have to go to the bathroom and you're trying to accomplish something, it's not going to happen very well. It's, when your hierarchy of needs is not being met, you
Yeah.
can't accomplish your goals. And I don't know if you I don't know if you ever, thought about that, though, but like the and then what's the other one? Fight. Fight would be, when they start whining about it's too hard or they're complaining about it, that's not like a physical fight, but they're still fighting doing it. And I feel like I have done this with certain goals I've had, whether it's fixing something around the house or with my businesses, if there's too many moving parts, I shut down and I can't even work on it. Like I can't even touch it. So you don't want your goals to be too complex because it'll just mess up your mind.
Yeah, and it's very custom too, because if you it's different for different people. I actually was at a Toastmasters meeting this week, and I was an evaluator, a speech evaluator, and the little guy that was speaking did a speech, and I'm trying to remember the word that he used for it. It was a speech about exactly what you're talking about. He talked about flight or fright, and he said even if a person it has the same educational level and the same IQ. It's just people are so individual that one person's goals may not be, or what I should say, what sends somebody into flight or fright is different for each person, regardless of whether they've come from the same background. It could be twin brothers who have the same exact education and
Mhm.
same DNA, but when it comes down to it, every person is an individual. And there was a real technical term he used for it, but and I can't think of it offhand. If I think of it before we get off, I'll share it with you. But yeah, it's interesting. You have to really know yourself. And that comes back to what we talked about last week with self awareness, knowing
Mhm.
what motivates you. And yeah, for sure. Really interesting stuff. Um, so it after thinking about challenge and complexity, three and four, third and fourth principles, it almost feels like it's impossible to set goals. but you can do it. You can do it. It's just such a delicate balance. But the fifth thing, the fifth goal setting principle is feedback, and it's all about getting progress reporting. And so this is when you know you need to adjust if the feedback you're getting is telling you, okay, there's no way you're going to make your goal, or then you need to say, am I going to adjust my goal, or am I going to change my plan, or what? And so if you don't get that feedback from an unbiased party,
Mhm.
then you won't realize your progress because you need to be able to adjust and adapt as needed. And it's easier to continue moving toward our goals when we see progress. So if you don't see the progress and you get that feedback and it helps you adjust and then you see progress, then you're gonna start building momentum. We've talked about that too.
Mm.
Momentum is a leader's best friend. Yep, it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
So I'm looking right now to tell you what that word is,
Okay.
because it's going to drive me crazy if I don't. Okay. So he was talking about, and I don't even dare try to explain it, but what the young man's speech was about was epigenetics.
Oh,
Epigenetics. I don't know if you've ever heard
yes.
about it. And it
Yes.
talks about how your thoughts motivate you to do different things, and it's all your thoughts, which is very specific to you. So if you get a chance, look that up. Epigenetics. It's EPI genetics, all one word. Interesting topic. And as a speech evaluator, I was so busy listening and looking at his presentation and grading that and all that I really didn't learn as much as some of the other people in the room that didn't have to do all that. But it was definitely an interesting topic that I want to look into some more. Maybe we'll do a podcast on it at some point. It was cool stuff.
Yeah, that's a real that's one of those ones that really gets your brain spinning. So
Oh, for sure. For sure.
and when I was looking at our notes I had, one of the things that strikes me about feedback is it's not just a positive thing to have people looking at your, I guess, looking at your goals from the outside and giving you positive or negative feedback or, just suggestions or whatever.
Yeah.
There's something to that sharing, even if the other party can't really comment, you know what I mean? Can't really, doesn't have any expertise in whatever it is you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like when you're working out and you have an accountability buddy. And I know for you and I, Tina and I text each other all day and night, normally anyway. But we'll tell
Unless
each
we
other,
accidentally text somebody else, like I did this morning,
yeah.
thinking I was talking to you.
But we'll text each other and I might say, "Oh, I got this, and this done," and it's just stuff around the house. It's nothing. Uh, I'm not, running for president or anything. I'm just getting dishes done or whatever. It's just stuff that's on my to-do list, and I'll feel proud of myself and or excited about it, and I feel like sharing it, and I'll share it to Tina, and Tina might say, "Oh yeah, I dusted everything and did all these I typed up all this stuff for and she'll have stuff too, and the two of us will go back and forth, and it builds that motivation. It makes you feel good, and it's good. And then sometimes, you know, Tina will have gotten lots done and I've done nothing all day. And I'm like, oh, I'm a bum, and then we'll start with the negative self-talk a little bit. But then the other one of us will be like, hey, you're not a bum. You probably needed a break. You remember how much you got done the other day? And so having that other person to
Yeah.
share with, well, it helps you to not either, you know, get get disillusioned and get, you know,
Yeah.
in a funk about it, but or it also can help really pump you up and get you excited and get you motivated to go do something. So when Tina's doing stuff, when you're doing stuff and you're getting a lot done and I haven't been doing anything, it motivates me to get up and get some stuff done. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're both
Same. Yeah.
Couch slugs.
It's so cool though, because when you think about, I've had people say, I'll say, oh, Priscilla got me motivated yesterday to do this, that, or the other, or whatever. And I'll share sometimes the same thing that you just shared with our listeners about how you and I do that for each other and we motivate each other. And I mean, my husband, who, is my number one fan, would probably be willing to do that stuff for me, but it might not work the same. You and I are
Mhm.
so like-minded and everything, and it's just so cool to have somebody to share that with. But I'll say that to somebody and they'll go, oh, well, you're so blessed to have a sister. I don't have a sister. It doesn't have to be your sister. It can be
Right.
anybody that's like-minded
Hmm.
and is your cheerleader. I think sometimes our spouses know us too well, and so it's not a good thing
Yeah.
for them to be our motivator, right? But in our case, as well as we know each other, we are not present for every minute of our day. And,
Right.
you know, you're not going to say to me, well, you're complaining you didn't get anything done, but you were, you know, talking on the phone to your sister for 8 hours or whatever, but it does, like I said, it doesn't have to be a sibling. It can be a good friend or just somebody that you can be accountable to and or a cheerleader for, because I think that's
Hmm.
kind of what you and I do for each other. One minute
Yeah.
I'm your cheerleader and I'm like, you go, girl, look at all you got done. And the next minute I'm like your therapist, where I'm like, girl, you got a lot going on and stress wears you out. So
Yeah.
don't be hard on yourself. And or like you texting me yesterday and saying no negative self-talk. What would you have said to me if I had said that back then?
Yeah, we got to do that for each other.
Oh, for
And
sure.
it's a different thought process. It's a different reaction than I feel like, and I don't know if it's a man woman thing. I know it's not a gender one-sided thing, but there are some people who when you tell them I'm struggling with this, they want to fix it and give you
That's
advice.
AJ, which is why you and I, that yes, I
Yeah,
love my
and if
husband, but he knows that he's a fixer.
there's and I feel like that's a more male tendency. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's necessarily true,
I think you're
but
probably right.
most of the time what people need, and I feel like that's more of a woman thing, but not necessarily, is we need somebody to just hear us and not try to fix it, but get that empathy, validation. We seek validation so much.
Mm.
And if it's something negative, if we're doing negative self-talk, we don't need that validated. We need maybe the cause of it validated, saying, hey, remember you ran a marathon yesterday, that's why you're tired, whatever,
For
Right.
sure.
Just helping us stay grounded, I guess, is the
Yeah.
goal.
I used to come home and complain about stuff that was going on at work. That was legit stuff to complain about. I mean, I was on numerous jobs. Well, not numerous, but on several of the jobs I've had in the past. It was just a toxic work environment. But people say, oh, well, if it's a toxic work environment, leave. But you can't always afford to do that, especially when you got a kid in the hospital and your husband
Mhm.
can't work because he's at the hospital 24/7 or whatever. So there were times when I had to stick with jobs, or AJ had to stick with jobs that we didn't really want to do, but we had to do what we had to do for our family. And when I would come home and complain, he would immediately start telling me, you need to tell that person this and but his personality and my personality are completely different. And
Mhm.
also, he had never worked in the corporate world like I did. And I knew you don't do that in the corporate world. You do that in the
Yeah.
corporate world and you're not going to be there long. And, and so I would always say to him, don't try to fix it. Just listen to me and say, man, that guy was really a jerk. Or,
Yeah.
you're right. You deserve to be treated better than that or
Mhm.
whatever. But, just like you said, he was trying to fix it.
Well, and
And he
part of
still
that
does
was he
that
was
and he catches
defensive of
himself.
you.
Huh?
Part of it is he was being defensive of you
Yeah, for sure. I
because
mean,
he
I know it
doesn't
came from a
didn't
good
want you
place, but
to be. talked down to or whatever was happening, and so that made him mad. So that had fueled his fire. So that's kind of sweet. So
Yeah.
you can look at it positively that
Oh,
way.
I know. And I've even done that to you where I've like knee jerk reacted to stuff and want to go beat people up. And you're like, I'm just venting. Don't, please. Don't go punch that lady at the bank.
What's
Throat punch, as mom would say.
Yeah, it's the first thing that I was going to say that that's the first thing if somebody you tell me somebody did something like, who
Who
do
you
I
want me to
need to punch
punch?
in the throat?
For sure.
I have never punched a single person in the throat for as many
Me
times
either.
as I've threatened
That's
it.
inherited that from mom though, because she used to say, in fact, she wrote on my Facebook one time, I wrote that I was having a horrible day and that people were mean to me. And mom commented and wrote, who do I need to punch in the throat? And one of our mutual friends said, oh my God, I've always thought Miss Beverly was such a sweet person. And now she's talking about punching people in the throat.
Violence. I'm
I'm like,
thinking violence
seriously, can you
inherent in the
picture
system.
mom punching anybody in the throat? Oh my goodness.
Oh, well,
Maybe
let's
one of
move.
our brothers, but no, I'm kidding.
Yes. Well, yeah. I know which one. Shh. It's a good thing they don't listen to our podcast.
I
Uh,
know they're not our fans.
it's,
What's up with that?
they're our fans. They just don't want to listen to us talk. All right, we get moving on. We have digressed. Moving on to 8 interesting facts on goal setting, because I know we're gonna have more to say.
I know. And here I was worried that we didn't have substantial enough research.
We have our own mouths.
There you
I
go.
told you
We
we
have
were
an
gonna zhuzh
opinion
it
on
up.
everything.
We're zhuzhing it up. Here are 8 interesting facts on goal setting. Number one is setting goals and reflecting on them improve academic success. I wonder if it also translates into having good brains in
Well,
general.
I mean, if you think about it, the more, well, I don't know if that's true though, because I've heard like the brain is a muscle, and the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's true though, but that might be one of those myths, like you only use 10% of your brains or whatever. Okay, so the second interesting fact about goal setting is that they are good for motivation, and vice versa.
Mm,
Motivation is good for goal setting or goals. They help us get to our goals. So kind of
yeah,
cool.
yeah. That's kind of like we were saying before about having something to shoot for.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then being motivated makes you more
exactly.
likely to achieve it. Yeah.
Yeah, the big mo. And then number three is setting clear goals that are challenging yet attainable is how you will find yourself in the zone. Build momentum, like we were talking about before. It's this the big mo. There it is.
Yeah. And it's true. Don't you think so? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I know when you were doing your Zumba business, when you would see numbers changing because of the things you were doing, you were so motivated that
Oh
you
yeah.
just kept building momentum and building momentum. I was so proud of you.
And it makes you better at whatever you do, I think.
Yeah.
Because like if I had a large attendance to one of my classes, when my attendance was larger, you would think having more people, especially new people, watching me do what I was doing would make me more nervous. But and occasionally I would have somebody if somebody came in with a bad attitude or if they had RBF, I'm not going to tell our listeners what it means. Look it up. If they just did not have a positive face on, and I paid too much attention to them, that might throw me off. Yes, but if I had a big group come in and they were all and I was in
Excited,
a
huh?
good excited mood when I started class and they got excited, it just that momentum of excitement, the excitement multiplied.
Oh, for
And it
sure.
made me more excited about class and about bringing in new choreography and whatever else. And so it was very positive.
Oh, yeah.
I'll
It,
stay on that.
I can see that. I can see that. I mean, you've been in the audience when I've spoken, so you know how much I feed off the audience.
Hmm.
And I have spoken to large groups before where I've had to purposely avoid looking at people in certain areas of the room because somebody was playing on their phone and not paying
Hmm.
attention, or somebody was just sitting there like, oh my God, would she ever shut up or whatever. Whereas I would feed off of the people who were smiling and excited to hear what I had to
Yeah.
share. And I think that's why I've gotten away from public speaking more, because I was so obsessed, that if
Mm.
I would, I could have 900 people in the room, and if 899 were smiling and cheering, but one was not, it brought me down too much. And I had a hard
Yeah.
time keeping my energy up, and it was just
Hmm.
exhausting.
Yeah,
I'm
the
not a high energy
energy.
person, so I need that.
Yeah, I watched a video of a lady talking about how to make your Zumba classes more enjoyable for everyone, including yourself. And she was talking about, um, I forgot the phrase exactly that she used, but she said you should look at your group while you're teaching and think, I forgot what, I can't think of what the phrase exactly was, but it was something like take energy or something like that. And like it trying to draw energy from the group to yourself and feed it back out into the group,
Mm-hmm.
sort of to create this sort of cyclone effect of the energy. And I feel like that is a really interesting concept and thing that we could do a whole podcast episode just on being somebody who does stuff in front of groups,
Yeah.
because it's a whole different dynamic than just working in an office or something.
Oh, it sure is. And I think, and I know I've shared this story with you before. I spoke at a conference one time, and I was the keynote speaker on Saturday night, and this gentleman was the keynote speaker on Friday night. And my speech was about being a hero as a leader. And I talked a lot about PJ and everything he went through in the hospital and all.
Hmm.
And the guy that spoke on Friday night was just real energetic. He ran around the room and he climbed up on chairs and he really rallied the crowd. Whereas on the other hand, my whole presentation was based on um, personal stories that were moving and emotional, not like loud and boisterous. I'm not sure how to say it, but it was not a high energy presentation. And that was one of the things that was a tell for me, was like, maybe I'm just not getting it, because I felt like there was not as much substance to what he had to say as there was to what I had to say.
Yeah.
However, he got a standing ovation and I didn't. And so I went to another conference a couple of years later, and he was the keynote speaker, and some of my friends were with me. And so after, and he did this very same or very similar presentation. And I asked some of my good friends who were with me, I said, can y'all just, weigh in on his presentation? And they were like, well, I mean, he was really energetic and very motivational, but there wasn't a whole lot of substance to what he had to say. And I was like, oh, thank goodness I asked that, because it's just it made me realize some people are just different. And
Mhm.
I was going for substance, he was going for motivating with energy, and so he did what he did and he did well, and I did what I did, and I have to hope I was received well. But yeah, you're right, there's a whole different dynamic when you're in front of people doing your job.
Mhm.
Don't even get AJ started on what it's like to be a sports official and have to deal with the crowd. Yeah.
That's even another different twist
Ooh,
on it.
that would really be a good topic. We could maybe recruit some people to be on as our guests that are in front of people doing their job.
Yeah,
And we
holler
could,
at us, y'all, if you have any thoughts on it.
yeah, for sure. We could get like musical performers and and theater people and umpires and sports officials and public speakers and Zumba teachers and who else is in classroom teachers like college professors who have to stand it. Yeah, let's. Ooh, interesting. Let's talk
Carpe
about that.
diem.
Way to get sidetracked, Tina.
Oh, that I started that. Sorry. I pushed that ball down the hill. We're on number 4.
Oh, thank you for that. I needed that. Okay, so this is the fourth interesting fact about goal setting, and that's if we take an optimistic approach to
Mhm.
setting our goals, it will help us succeed. So that's sort of like the whole thing about being committed, I
Mhm.
think.
Be positive.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then number 5 is goals that are both specific and difficult tend to lead to overall improved performance. So there has to be some challenge,
yeah,
which we talked about before,
yeah, yeah.
but specific too. Specificity. I sound like I'm drunk. That's a hard one for me to
Simplicity. Um, and so people with high efficacy are more likely to set challenging goals and commit to them. Oh,
I'm
we
commenting about them
too
too.
much coffee. That's the sixth interesting fact. So let me repeat that since I butchered the words. People with high efficacy are more likely to set challenging goals and commit to them. So individuals who believe in their own abilities and are under pressure of challenging goals tend to maintain or even increase their subsequent goals,
Mm,
thereby making improvements to ensuing performances. So, in other words, once you attain your goal, you got to keep it going. And that's momentum has a big role in that. But it's also how do you feel about the success that you've had? Has it improved your self efficacy or um, efficacy is very specific in what it means, and so it's a little different than your self image and self esteem, but it's basically your ability to accomplish things. This is the way I look at it. I know it's defined in different ways, but yeah. So you have to see your own success and keep motivated to continue setting subsequent goals.
yeah. I mean, if they're specific enough and you keep it simple enough, but still challenging and you keep attaining the same thing, you're going to want to shoot higher, I would imagine. So
Oh,
that
for
would be the
sure.
increasing the subsequent goals
You see
part.
people like in what is it called? Those pyramid companies. Is that what it's called? Well, no,
Yeah.
no, but I mean, pyramid companies have been around for many, many years. And although I despise them with a passion, I feel like they're on to something, right? With the whole, oh, you made this rank, and then now you got to shoot for this one. And I've been involved in other companies that aren't even considered pyramid companies, but that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
They sell you one level of success, and then you think, oh, I finally made it. And then all of a sudden they create this new level that you need to aspire
Uh-huh.
to. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I finally made it to this level, and now they're wanting me to do something else. So those kinds of things are a slippery slope.
Yep. Sure thing. Number 7 is social influences are a strong determinant in goal choice. Uh, peer pressure. Well, not necessarily peer pressure, but if you are, you know, if you're in sort of a hive of like-minded or like interest people who are in the same business or same field, and you see what they're doing, that's gonna motivate you to step your game up, I think.
Yeah, for sure. We use that in Toastmasters by like when one person wins an award, we make sure we make a big deal about it, like
Mhm.
announcing it at the meetings and stuff, because it encourages everybody else to try to reach those goals. But there's a negative piece of it too, and that is especially if you get to a position where you feel like you're missing out. And I've been part of organizations, like I said, that encourage you to meet these different goals. And then they basically call, oh, everybody's at the gold level can come to this event. But if you're not at the gold level, you can't come to this event. And it kind of makes you feel bad because you feel like you're missing out, even though
Mm-hmm.
you know you've done everything you can possibly do and you're just not able to get to gold. And so I kind of dislike that in a way, but it's true. Those social influences will make you more successful, but I think sometimes they put too much pressure on us. And goal setting is more powerful uh, in motivating you than monetary incentives alone are. I've always talked about that. Years ago, I was on a team at my old job, and we were looking for ways to motivate our team. And my co-chair and I watched this video, and it was all about finding incentives for your team that were not monetarily based. Because when you did that, and it was, you could use money or some type of monetary reward, but if it was just that and nothing else, it didn't build the kind of camaraderie and all that you wanted. So, like they talked about, this one guy had a safety award that he could give each employee. They had budgeted for it, and they said if there were no accidents, reported accidents for the year, each one of his employees would get $100. And it was kind of like a motivator that they were going to use. But the team that was handling that motivation decided that they actually invested in a consultant to say, hey, help us figure out better ways to do things. We've got this money. We could just motivate the employees by saying, here's $100.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've not had any accidents this year, so here's $100. And the guy, that consultant that they were working with, was like, do you really think $100 is that big of a deal? I mean, if you add it to their paycheck, it would just get absorbed into all their bills and stuff. You need to do something
Mm-hmm.
special with that $100. And so he encouraged them to think of something creative. And so what they did was they took all their employees, and it was a small company, it was only like 30 people. They took all their employees to the mall, the local mall. They gave them each $100 bill, and they told them that they needed to spend the $100 on themselves, and that if they spent at least 90, they could keep the change, but they had to spend at least 90, and it had to be one item, not multiple
Oh,
items. Or it could be a set. I think, you know, it's like if a woman bought a purse, she could buy matching shoes or whatever. But it had to, I don't know where you get that for $100 these days. But anyway, the whole point was they wanted them to choose something of value for themselves. It couldn't be for a family member. It had to be for them. Then they had them all meet back in the middle of the mall. They had a time limit, and they had to meet back in the middle of the mall, and they were in like the food court in this circle, and they had to do show and tell about their item. And if they spent less than $90, they had to turn the change over to the boss. But if they spent at least 90, they could keep the change. And it was so interesting. He said that that exercise, or that process that they used, was so wonderful compared to what it could have been if they had just added $100 to everybody's paycheck.
mm.
And it was funny because at the time I was telling AJ about it, and one of his fellow umpires worked for a company or something that was given safety awards. And he asked AJ, do you have any ideas of something I could buy for my employees for $25? And AJ's like, that's not a lot of money. And he's like, you should talk to my wife. She just talked about the same thing. And so the guy either called me or I explained the whole thing to AJ, and he told the guys like, that's too much trouble, and he blew it off.
Oh,
And I said, he's not willing to do what it takes to build his team. You know, that's a real motivator for people when it's something that money, and so it goes back to what I was saying. That was a really long way to say that I agree with this interesting fact that goal setting is more powerful of a motivator than monetary incentives alone. So
yeah,
yes.
I agree too. I mean, it's we as much as we need money, for stuff, and money is helpful for things, it is not, it just doesn't fulfill the way, you know, the sharing of time with people um or having, that achievement that feels full, whereas money feels flat. It's just like, oh, it's money. And it's, like you said, it just gets absorbed into everything else, unless you get that much that you can, build yourself a new house or something crazy,
Oh
something
yeah.
really big. It would have to be something significant, and for the money to be that motivating. But really, it's kind of like the whole teach a man to fish thing,
Hmm.
you know. The giving the money is like giving the man the fish. When you're building your dream, when you're setting and achieving the goals, the money will come. That's a side effect. So that's definitely a true thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty interesting.
So
Yeah.
what skills do we need to have to set our goals? And the first skill we need is planning. The old adage, fail to plan, plan to fail, is applicable to successful goal achievement. We're using all kind of old adages today. But yeah, you gotta plan your work and work your plan.
Yeah,
That's
for
one I heard
sure.
all the time when I was in a pyramid scheme.
I started to say it earlier when you were talking about incremental goals and all. If you've ever been involved in any kind of project planning or scheduling for a company, I did some of that. I worked in an engineering firm and also worked in the corporate world for a while as a small projects planner. And we had to do these like schedules for our projects. And I remember the first time I had to do one, I had no clue. I mean, I was really good with the software just because I'm a software person and I played with it for a half hour and I immediately knew what I was doing. But the mindset of a planner and a scheduler, people that have project management certifications and all and know what they're doing with that, I didn't have that. And so I went to my boss and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And he says, come on, Tina, you're a really smart person. Just sit down and think about all the tasks. And to this day, I have always said that he was the best boss about that. He would always like challenge me. He wouldn't give me the answers. He
Mm,
would say, you're smarter than this. Go back and figure it out. And he would give me little clues to help me. And that's what he said to me. He's like, he says, okay, so for example, you're doing this project, you know that you're supposed to come up with the schedule and the project plan for training. And he said, but what are the steps to that? And I said, well, somebody's got to develop the training and we have to hire a trainer or train the trainers. And it's like, okay, you're on the right track. Now go do your thing. It was just like give me little clues to make me think. And his name was Brian. So shout out to Brian. He was younger than me, which was fun, but he just had a genius brain. He was so smart. And I still keep in touch with him. He's awesome. But anyway, that was one of the things that we did would be we would develop these schedules and it would have all the pieces. So for example, task number one had to happen before task number two, right? So if I was building a website, I had to first choose a platform to build that website on. Will I use WordPress? Will I use GoDaddy website builder or whatever? I had to come up with what type of software or what type of host am I going to go with? What are the pages of my website going to look like? What are my colors going to look? And you have to come up with the answers to all these questions. And there's a certain order you should do them in, because
mm,
if you do the tasks in the wrong order, then you have to backtrack. And so planning, which is what you said goal setting requires, part of that is determining which of these tasks need to be done first. And then you set a milestone date for that particular task. So, what you were saying earlier about becoming overwhelmed, I think part of not becoming overwhelmed is chunking it out like that, right? And
uh-huh.
saying, I'm not going to look at this overwhelming thing. Oh God, Tina, you have to build a website by December 1st, whatever. I'm looking at it. Okay, what's step one? I need to pick the host and figure out what platform I'm going to build it on. And that's easy, right? That'll
Hmm.
take me a couple of weeks, maybe of some research if I'm not familiar with the different platforms, but at least I know what I'm doing and I can focus on that. And I'm not looking at this huge, overwhelming Tina, build this website. And so
Right.
I think that's one of the mistakes that we make as people who set goals is we don't break it down into chunks and look at
Hmm.
the individual steps. When you and I were planning how to start a podcast, at first we were overwhelmed with it, but when we started researching, saying, okay, first we need to just learn more about podcasts and
Hmm.
what are the video formats or audio formats we can use, and do we know how to do that? No, that's how we ended up becoming successful with it, or at least as successful as we are, because we were willing to break it down. So break it down
Yeah.
like a song.
I to me, it's like a recipe or a roadmap. You have to have the one, two, three, the guidelines,
Yes. Yeah.
how you're going to get from point A to point B. And I'm going to throw another adage at you. One that I love that makes my kids go, ew, is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too.
Mm-hmm.
One bite at a time. It's the truth. And some of us we were joking about this this weekend. I think you were involved in the conversation at church where we were talking about how some people are cooks and some people are bakers, and
Mm.
bakers tend to be the people. Lauren and I talked about, oh, it was Lauren and Daryl and AJ and I were talking about that. Lauren said, Daryl cooks better than I do because he doesn't need a recipe, he just throws a bunch of stuff in the pot. And she said, I'm like the rule follower, got to have the measurements. How many
Mm-hmm.
teaspoons do you add? And I said, that's me. That's why I've always been better at baking than cooking, because baking requires an exact recipe, whereas cooking doesn't. And so people, and I think you tend to be more of a baker, right? As far as, I mean, a
Yeah.
cook more than a
Yeah.
baker.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I, I will bake when needed, but I don't feel as confident.
that's interesting.
I almost, when I can have some wiggle room with a recipe, I feel a little bit safer. I don't know, but I tend to cook with my nose. I'm a smeller. I can smell.
That's
I
how
have a
AJ
really
is
good
too,
sense
or
of
he
smell.
tastes it along the way. Yeah. Yes.
So,
So that's interesting because you and I are so much alike in every other way. But that's one place where we differ, is that I need
mhm,
that structured, it's why I told you I feel like um, being in a weight loss plan that has specific instructions and a tracker and all that has helped me. Whereas telling me just do this and do that with the doctors telling me to do, I was like, oh, that's not working. I need specifics. But
yeah.
very interesting. And then the next thing that you need, the next skill that you need is self motivation. So you have to have the desire to achieve, or your attempts at goal setting are going to be doomed to fail. You have to have the desire to change, and you can act yourself into a feeling, but there has to be at least some desire, right, for the end
Hmm.
result. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to fuel your own train, your own Tina train. Oh, well, here's one that's a struggle for me and anybody who's got ADHD is time management. You get time blind. It's really a tricky thing, and sometimes you need a lot of external controls and borders, I
Mhm.
guess. Kind of like having those little things on the side of the lane when you're bowling. You need you need stuff to keep your train on track with the time management. Because time management, of course, it's useful and essential for almost everything. You just
Yeah.
daily routine and everything. If you lose track of time all the time, it really discombobulates you. So you need to have those little external forces like the cell phone, the little lady who lives in the cell phone. I'm not gonna say her name, but she helps me out a lot with it,
Mhm.
reminding me, hey, it's time to go pick your kids up, you
For
know.
real. Yeah,
Hey, it's time to put out your trash, whatever.
I have a dependency on that too. But it's interesting because I struggle with time management. Not in that I'm pretty good about, like, I'm pretty good at looking ahead and saying, like, I know the stuff I have to get done for service on Sunday at church. And so I have, in my method of scheduling things is that I start with the due date and I go backwards.
Mm.
And so like I'm like, okay, by Sunday morning I have to have the PowerPoint done for service and this, that, and the other done. But then I don't like working on Saturday. So then I set a deadline for myself to have all that stuff done by Friday. And then, on Thursdays I send announcements. So I try to make time on Wednesday to get those ready just in case I am busy on Thursday and don't want to have to stay up till 2 in the morning to get announcements out after
Mm.
midnight, which doesn't really accomplish my goal anyway. But
Mm.
so I tend to struggle with that too. But even though I have my own method of managing my time and I do it pretty well, I really would like to do, oh my goodness, the thunder is so loud.
Oh, I can't
I
hear
know
it.
you probably can't hear it, but it's very loud. Oof, shook my house. But I have this thing. I'm gonna see if I can show it to you. Everybody's looking at my neck right now. But
You have to describe it for our listening
for our
audience.
listening audience, yeah. So it's the
Oh,
blur is
your
covering it,
screen
so it
blur is
won't
doing
work. But
it.
anyway, basically it's a planner by Blue Sky. And I got it from Office Depot. And what it is it just says week of blank at the top. And then it has 6 blocks: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday are split into 2. And what you're supposed to do with it, and I can tell you that I have probably like 300 sheets left. So, I haven't used it a whole lot. No, that's not true. I have about 50 sheets left. Um,
It's only January.
yeah, but I bought it like 3 years ago.
Oh.
But what you're supposed to do is every week fill out one of those sheets and say, on Monday, I'm going to spend like 2 hours writing if I'm trying to write a book, right? I'm going to spend an hour working on my website. I'm going to spend, and in my mind, I really want to do that. I desperately wanted to do that. I'll say, I know what I'm going to do. Monday's going to be my day to clean out my email. And every Monday, I'm going to clean out my email and say, make sure that so my thing is when I get an email that I can't handle right away, I flag it for later. So if I get an email that has an interesting article, but it's really long and I don't have time to read it, I'll flag it. But what happens is I end up with 30 things in my inbox flagged that I never get to.
Mm.
And unless they're urgent, unless they're like, I have to do this for my job or whatever. And so, or there's a deadline to cancel my subscription or whatever. But if there's just a regular flag on it, and sometimes I use different color flags, like, if my daughter sends me a message that I have to pay her tuition or help her with something, I will flag it with a different color because that way I know it'll stand out to me. But I keep saying every Monday I'm going to spend time, an hour, going through those flagged items to see which ones I can get rid of because I really want to clean my email out. And I never get to it. And so I have this great desire to be a better time manager, but it doesn't really happen.
Mm.
So I guess I don't have that skill.
Well, you have a goal to set now.
Or, I just need to act myself into a feeling with my time management and start, because maybe if I could just program myself to follow a schedule, I would be better at it. But I don't know. It may not be worth it. The next skill that you have to have if you want to be good at goal setting is self-regulate. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Flexibility. So flexibility is all what we talked about being adaptable. And so when you get to a roadblock or when you find out a road is closed on your way to Florida, you need to go a different route. That's what
Mhm.
flexibility is about. You got to be willing to adapt.
Yeah, you gotta
So
roll with the
important.
punches, figure out, you know,
Yep, for sure.
where do you go from here? How do you get around, like the bear, or not the bear, the bear hunt, the bear hunt. Can't go over it. Can't go under it. We'll have to go
Oh, I
around it.
remember that. Oh my gosh. You bring me back to my childhood. Ugh.
The next one is self-regulation. You need to be able to regulate and manage your emotions in order to meet your goals. I think a lot of that is can be weeded out with having that accountability partner too.
Yeah,
Having somebody else to help you um reflect back to so you can see what you're how you're processing things. And
yeah,
you still have to self-regulate, but having somebody to mirror it back to you and show you what's really going on, it
yeah.
helps with that, I think. It really
Yeah. How many
supports
times have you seen somebody say, I'm gonna lose weight, and then they get on the scale, and because the scale doesn't go down every single day, they give up, right? And
Mhm.
that's because they're not good at self-regulating. And I think we all probably need to work on that. But we let our emotions take over when we're in such a instant, what's the word I'm looking for? Like we want instant
Gratification.
gratification.
And
Yeah. And if I skip dessert on Monday, I want to lose a pound by Tuesday or whatever. And it's just so frustrating when you don't. And like you said, if you have that person that says, come on, really?
mm,
Did you really expect to lose a pound because you skipped dessert last night? You need that person or people, your tribe, to say, look, you're
yeah.
doing great. Just stay on track. Yeah,
Well, and maybe too, you need to go back to the last one, flexibility. And
true.
if you're having that much trouble regulating how you feel about it and your emotions are all over the place with your goal because you're getting disappointed and you're not seeing your progress, maybe you need to track your progress differently. Maybe that's an area where you need to be flexible and say, I'm going to throw the scale out the window and I'm going to start measuring how my clothes fitting, or maybe I don't have enough attendance in my class as I was hoping, to achieve, but my people are happy, so you have to look at
Oh, yeah.
different elements. There goes my house phone.
Oh, just ignore it. That is an excellent point, though. It's what we do to ourselves, and
Hmm.
we just and it's emotional. It's just
Hmm.
you have to take emotions out of it, like trying to lose weight. We talked about that in the goal in the resolution thing too. Like if instead of saying I want to lose 20 pounds, you say I want to eat healthier, that's a much better approach, right? And then you don't feel committed to numbers as much if you know you're actually eating healthier and doing what you're supposed to do. The weight thing is a measurement, and I think we always feel we need that measurement even when sometimes we don't. So how about the measurement? Did your cholesterol come down? Is your blood pressure normal when everybody else around you has high blood pressure or whatever? And then the last skill that you need for goal setting is commitment and focus. You have to focus. You have to actually fill in the little things on the sheet
Yeah.
if you want to use that as a tool. And if you're not committed, you're not going to succeed. And your goals have to be relevant on a personal level in order to make that commitment and have the goals be attainable. They have to be personally oriented. So goes back to being committed to those goals, and like we said from the very beginning, um, they have to be specific to you.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense to me because so often, and I'm going to talk about this in my marinade, but so often we set goals for ourselves because we think we're supposed to.
Mm.
Like, I got my master's degree, so now I need to get my doctorate because that's what Sue and Betty and Barbara did. They got their doctorates.
Mm.
And of course, I need my doctorate. But then I think about it and I'm like, what do I need a doctorate for? I'm not even using my master's.
That's another thing. That's okay. So one of the things with goal setting that I've heard over the years is, and we didn't even, it wasn't in this article, at least as far as we've dived into it. But one thing that is helpful as far as motivation is having a why. And
That's so true.
if you don't know why you're doing something, then you need to rethink whether or not that is a goal that you even want to have.
Yeah.
You know, don't have it just to have it. Don't have it because it's the next logical step. Is it the next logical step for you? Do you need to set that goal? Do you need, you know, if you're building or adding onto your house, do you need to keep adding onto your house? When is enough enough? Where is your roof for that goal? Or maybe you need to go and branch out in another direction, or maybe there's another area of your life where you have different goals. What is your why? For a lot of people, their why is their kids, their family, supporting them, building for their future. And some people, their why is because they want to help other people.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so you
Yeah.
gotta knowing why you're doing it, I think is definitely a good place to start.
And if you don't know where to find to start with finding your why, go read anything by Simon Sinek.
Mm,
Find your why, know your why, start your why. He has all those
that's
books that he
true.
wrote about your why. And yeah, good
Yep.
stuff. Go watch
I've read
power
some of him
videos of him.
his stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna paste the link for this article in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. And there's lots more great information how to set goals when you're working with teams specifically. So there's a whole nother area besides just, your unique individual goals, and some tools you can download, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get
It's
you get
like
getting
PDFs
going.
and stuff. I think that help with that. So kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Freebies. I love freebies.
Freebies are cool. I love freebies. So we used to have sauce for thought, but now we have marinade. Tina, what have you been marinating on in?
It's interesting that you should say that because it really turned into a marinade for sure. Because I was marinating on the on a thought about creativity and how it needs to be nurtured and everything. And coincidentally, I might have mentioned it already, but I'm doing. I love the Bible app for my cell phone, and I have that on my phone. And occasionally, I'll do a plan that's in there. And I was looking for a new plan at the beginning of this year, and I stumbled on one by Rick Warren, who's the author of A Purpose Driven Life. And I had read the Purpose Driven Life book, and I had participated in the 40 Days of Purpose study at my church where we look, and it's interesting because it's sort of like Simon Sinek's whole thing of finding your why, what's your purpose, right? And but in doing this Bible study, uh, from January 1st. It's a 1 year thing and it's a plan and it takes like 5 minutes a day. Some of the days there's like a homework assignment, write down all the things you're good at and so, but anyway, it was really interesting because I shared with you, Priscilla, that he encouraged us to write down things that we're passionate about and things that we would love to see changed about the world. What are some of our gifts that God's blessed us with that we can use in certain ways? And then, like, the next day was like, okay, now take your gifts that you wrote down and think about your passions or those things that you felt very strongly about that you wanted to change about the world. Think about how those two connect. How can you use your gifts? So if you said you are a great writer and you had a passion for the homeless, how could you use your writing skills to help the homeless? Different things like that. So of course you're not going to write down just one gift. Maybe you're a great cook and you can help the homeless by serving meals or something like that.
Mhm.
So it was really challenging and interesting, and I've been keeping a journal. And it got me to thinking, though, one of the things that Rick Warren said was, whatever your gifts are, they have to be nurtured in some way. And I started thinking about, you and we come from a creative family. You know, our parents were musicians, and mom taught and wrote and was an artist, and a lot of people in our family, our kids and all, are very creative. And so creativity is a huge thing in our family, but it's not always nurtured the way it needs to be. And for me personally, I have longed to write, which is one of the reasons that I did the whole simplification thing, was because I have consistently said, I want to start a podcast. I want to start a podcast. I want to start a podcast. And you and I talked about it together. And thank you. We finally did it.
Mhm.
But there are other things like I want to write a book about this, and I want to write a book about that. And the other day I thought of another idea to write a book, and AJ was like, okay, you need to just focus. So it's
Mhm.
back to that goal setting. You need to focus, right?
Mhm.
But anyway, how do you nurture that creativity, right? And for
Mhm.
us, you and we've nurtured our creativity through this podcast, but also leading up to this podcast, we nurtured that sense in us of that creativity by listening to other podcasts. You have to,
Mhm.
oh, how many people do you know that just live unintentionally and don't really do things that bring substance to their life, like listen to podcasts, read books? I'm not a reader. I've admitted that to everybody over and over again, but I listen to audiobooks a lot. And so you do what works for you, right? You listen to podcasts, you listen to audiobooks, and you've had a lot of enjoyment out of listening to podcasts and watching videos of different people. And
Mhm.
it's really a great way to nurture your creativity, because you hear other people's ideas and it takes off. So you have to think about, what are your gifts God gave you, and are you using them? And if not, you need to figure out ways to use them or nurture them so that they can at least be used later. And so I've been marinating on that all week long. And then I listened to an episode of the Office Ladies podcast, which is mine and your um, go-to podcast that we love so much
Mhm.
because we love The Office. And Jenna Fisher and Angela Martin, no,
Kinsey.
Angela Kinsey, who plays Angela Martin,
Mhm.
um, were, have this podcast where they talk about every episode of The Office. And in this particular episode, they were interviewing Zach Woods. And it was an older episode that I kind of went back to and listened to that I had missed. And Zach Woods was a character on The Office. And he asked the ladies the question, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, like during the period that The Office show was made, it was 9 seasons, I guess, or
Mhm.
and so the 9 years that you were doing that show, if you could go back and tell the you that was just starting out with that show, or just realizing your success in the show, what would you tell yourself? And Jenna Fisher said that if she could go back and speak to the Jenna of season 3 or 4, when they realized what a huge success The Office was, she would tell herself that that was enough. She
Mm.
did not need to keep seeking movies, and is she going to write a book or whatever. And she said, it's just like right now. I have people telling me, and she said, I was listening to all these outside voices that were saying it's not enough that you're on this successful TV show. You need to keep that momentum going by auditioning for these movie roles. And she said that she ended up spending her hiatus hours, her time when she could have been off spending it with family, trying to seek the next big thing, like
Mhm.
the next movie she was going to be in. And she would be on hiatus for 3 months from The Office, but she'd be filming a movie the entire time. And so her thing was, she said, if I could go back and tell myself now, you, I would say, don't feel like that show was not enough. She said, what an incredible thing it was to be part of The Office. That show was hugely successful. And Angela Kinsey actually agreed with her and said, yeah, I think I would do the same. Her response was a little different, but it was basically the same idea. don't feel like you, and it really spoke to me and it related back to what I was saying about nurturing your creativity, because I think one of the things that I've fallen prey to, I don't know about you so much, but it's like if I'm going to do a podcast, I want it to be hugely successful and have all these followers.
Mm,
And it's just it's I don't want to say it's a pipe dream because it's not, but it is doable. But that's not why we wanted to do this. We
right.
wanted to do it because we wanted to speak to things that we're passionate about and
Mhm.
share our thoughts with other people. And I think that, um, like Jenna Fisher, I need to say to myself, it's okay. It's enough to do the podcast. It doesn't have to be listened to by millions of people. If five people listen, and it goes back to years ago when I gave up doing my daily videos, my tidbits from Tina, because I weighed the value. How much time am I investing into this and what am I getting out of it?
Mm,
And at the time I was doing those videos to try to engage customers and get new clients and get speaking gigs, and it wasn't
mm,
happening. So my why was not being satisfied.
mm,
Whereas this podcast, even though we may not have a huge following, my why is being satisfied because my why is different. My why is I want to spend time doing
mm,
something creative with my sister, learning new things, and we're doing it, right? And
yep,
so, but even you and I need to allow time to nurture our
mhm,
creativity. We spent one whole breakfast like hashing out ideas and
mhm,
bouncing ideas off of each other for what are we going to do for the upcoming episodes. And
mhm,
so yeah, that's pretty much what I want people to marinate on is, um, give yourself some time to think. One of the things Rick Warren says is be alone with Jesus. And he said that we busy ourselves so much in this day and age that you need to actually plan time to be alone with Jesus. And I hear friends of mine that'll say, in my Bible time or in my time with Jesus this morning. And I envy that because I wake up in the morning and hit the ground running, and I don't always, and I know you do as well, especially still having two kids home in school. And I don't even have that situation, but I'm usually, I hit the ground running with some mission for the day. Like I have to go, um,
rescue your brother.
yeah, rescue my brother or whatever. And so I've found it really difficult to find that time. And so that's what I've kind of been working through this week and marinating on is how can I make sure I have that time, not just to be with Jesus, but also time to be creative and nurture that
Mhm,
creativity. And again, I do believe that by listening to other podcasts and listening to books
mhm,
all fills the creativity, right? And
mhm.
exploring my own need to simplify this year has been a real interesting process. And so I started writing down some of my thoughts about that and what I've gone through. And of course, then I'm like, oh, this would make a good book that I'll never have time to write. But but yeah, so that's my thought. That's my marinade for this week. Is that you should look for opportunities for quiet time where you can reflect on things and nurture your creativity because it's not going to just happen if you don't take the time to think about it. You have to allow for that time, allow time for you to be with Jesus, allow time for you to figure out your why, and it'll help you with every area of your life.
That's some tasty marinade, team.
That's what she said. Yeah.
The whole time you were thinking, I kept coming up with music lyrics and things in my head that went along with what you were saying. Like remember
Funny.
uh Schoolhouse Rock?
Oh yeah.
Body grows bigger, your mind grows flowers. It's great to learn because knowledge is power.
I
I was thinking
remember
you were
that
talking
one.
about listening to other stuff and reading and I was thinking how it grows, it plants seeds, grows flowers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Uh, the one I remember the most is conjunction
Conjunction
junction.
junction.
What's your
What's the
function?
function?
So I always knew what a conjunction was from that song. Gosh, we're showing how mature we are right now.
Yes, we're very mature.
Mhm.
Although I have, I think I have, I hope I still have it because it's really cool. It got loaned out and stuff, so it might be scratched up, but I have a CD of re recasts, remakes, re-recordings, I guess, of the old all the songs from that. And
Schoolhouse
it's
Rock. Mhm.
yeah, all it's Schoolhouse Rock, but from more modern artists, but it's from like 20 plus years ago. So it's not modern. But so an interesting group. You have to look it up. I can't off the top of my head, I'm blanking on who's all on it, but uh the they're great. If you want to hear some
I'm
cool
sure it's on
things.
YouTube somewhere. You know how that
Oh
goes.
yeah.
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 Our topic for next week is a fun one, especially if you're not from New Orleans. You'll want to listen because we're talking about Mardi Gras. Mardi
Yeah.
Gras is on the 13th
Yep.
of February this year. And so February 4th, which is the date our next podcast will drop, which is a Sunday, is kind of sort of the weekend that the whole parade season starts. I mean, there are
Really
already
kicks off.
parades, but all the best parades start.
The big ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that weekend. So we're looking forward to sharing some of what we know about Mardi Gras with you. Maybe even
Mm-hmm.
tell some of our secrets about how we get beads. Ha ha. It's all legit though. We don't do the yeah. Have a
Don't want to
need for
elaborate on
beads.
that one.
Huh?
Oh, I have some
It's
methods.
not going to be an X-rated Mardi Gras
No,
podcast.
no, it's family friendly.
Yeah.
Keep it tame.
Family Fest. It's like Family Fest. Yeah. So we'll share that with you. We're looking forward to that. And we're still waiting on questions. Where's our
Yeah.
letters from listeners? We
Don't you
need,
people have any problems?
obviously, all of our listeners are what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Living in a utopian society where there is nothing wrong and
there you go.
nothing to
That
change.
that fits. Yeah. I was going to say they're all self-aware and they all know how to solve
They're
every
meeting their
problem.
goals.
We sure haven't gotten a whole lot of letters. I think we've
No.
gotten two questions.
Maybe
So
they're shy. Y'all
yeah,
shy. Don't be shy.
I'm going to
We'll keep
start
it
calling people and
confidential.
say, "What's your question for the sisters?"
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Poll the audience. I don't know.
Even if we only have two questions, I know we'll find something to talk about.
Yep.
We're really good at coming up with stuff. So, and I will mention that. So, on just to give you a glimpse of what's coming up, February 4th, Mardi Gras, February 11th, Valentine's Day. We'll be talking about things you can do to say I love you to the people in your life. And it's not just significant others, it's about loving on the people in your life. And
Hmm.
then the 18th is our advice episode with letters from listeners. And then February 25th. Do you remember what it is, Chris? I know
Not
you
off the
don't,
top of my head.
because there's no way. It's a long list. But anyway, February 25th, we're going to talk about our favorite movies.
Oh, right.
Yay! I wonder
I'm
how
excited
many on
about
the
that
list are
one.
going to be rom-coms.
Oh, my taste in movies is eclectic, so
Yeah. Yeah. Mine are a lot of rom-coms, but yeah,
I
for
have
sure. I do have
rom-coms,
some
but
eclectic ones in there.
I, There are some classics. Some.
And there are some that are so painful to watch that I enjoyed the heck out of the first time, but I'll never watch them again.
Oh, yeah.
We can
Mm,
talk about that.
that's true. I
Yeah.
thought of one the other day that was like that, but I forget what it was. But I remember
Um,
thinking that, thinking of a certain movie and thinking, great movie. I never want to see it again.
yeah, there was one with I can't think of the title of the movie offhand, but it was a name of a song, if I remember correctly. When a Man Loves a Woman.
Oh,
Do you know that movie?
is that's Meg Ryan, right?
Meg Ryan.
And
And
oh, I
I
can
was going to
picture him.
say
I can't
Michael
think of his
Douglas, but
name.
that's not his name. No.
No.
But anyway, the plot of it, the wife, Meg Ryan, is an alcoholic and her husband finds out and she goes into rehab. But it is just like heart-wrenching to watch this movie, but it is a very good movie. But
Hmm.
I'll never forget, AJ and I watched it
Andy Garcia.
and thank you, Andy Garcia. AJ and I watched it and it was just so intense. And I mean, especially if you watch it um with while you're it's like anything if you're going through something and then you
Yeah.
watch that movie and it was just so intense and we were getting in the car the next morning to go to church and our neighbors that lived across the street from us were getting in their car to go to church and Paul our neighbor yelled, hey, y'all doing okay? And we were yelling back and forth and he was like, hey, did y'all go to the club last night? Because we used to go eat at the country club by our house sometimes, and they went too. And we said, no, we stayed home and we watched a movie. And he's like, oh, what'd you watch? And we said, When a Man Loves a Woman. And him and his wife both turned around and said, oh, that movie is intense.
Mm.
And we just thought that was so funny because that was our feeling too. We were like, oh my gosh, what an intense movie. But yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm sure it'll be on my list, but it's like one of those ones I have never watched a second time.
Mhm.
But that's not till the 24th. Next week, we'll talk about Mardi Gras. And until then, make yourself a priority.
And take care of you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to keep up on all the latest sauce. See you next time.